Hi there and welcome to my studio. My name is Gideon, also known as Gideonslight, and I am a creatively fit coach. Come join me in my studio as we play and have fun at the canvas and in our art journals. What are you waiting for? Here we go. So awesome. can also play with stencils, and I thought that this particular fleur-de-lis stencil of mine repeats some of the sort of feelings that I have in that original. So let's create a print using a stencil. If I can get it off my plate, there we go. And I thought, let's do an orange background. So one thing about monoprinting or gel printing or any kind of printing really, and creating your collage papers, it is experimental. You are not guaranteed to have a particular end result all the time. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but don't throw your papers away that you are working on, because you can always use it as a background for something better later. So I'm going to put this on in the middle here. And now I'm going to use this again to just pull some of these excess paint off, particularly there in the middle. And I'm doing a gentle roll quickly. And praying to God that the tissue doesn't tear. And if it does, it's okay. I wanted to show you that as well. That can happen. Dun, 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 dun. That's all part of the fun and the frustration sometimes. I must use my regular tissue paper. That's more for gift wrapping. That's a bit stronger. That's okay. So this is what we call a scab, when your paper forms a little bit of a scab on something, and that can create some interesting backgrounds later. So I'm going to take my little fleur-de-lis off, and now we've got an imprint. But now don't throw that away. This is what I mean with have your papers and everything at hand and ready. So I'm just going to move that aside quickly so you can see here. I've got this piece of tissue here, so put that down. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm experimenting with my tissue paper. Now that didn't quite work out. So this is exactly what I mean with experimental. Sometimes it works, sometimes it does not. Okay, so now we've got a layer of orange here that's dried a little bit, and I want to create a bit of contrast there, and I'm going to try and pull all of this off in one go, including that scab. So let's see if we can get that to happen. Now remember, when you pull this off, this will be the front of your print, and this, what I add now, will be at the back. Sort of. There's a whole nother world of printing rules that happens. So the secret here is to have your paint quite thin, so that the next part of it can attach to that. So let's see. It either works or it doesn't, right? But it's not a failure, and this is the part I want to highlight for you. So whatever you do in art, it's always about decision making and trying something new and experimenting. And if it works out, then you've gained something creative that you can replicate and try again. or you've learned something. Either way, it is part of the process. So let me add some heat again. That's not too bad, but you know, it's not the greatest either, so we might do something else on top of that. So let me show you how you can elevate some of the things that you've printed that you personally don't like because it's not clear enough, you don't really see anything. Let's add our stencil right back on top of it. Sort of find the spot where I had it, and now I'm going to just use a spatula. Let me just grab one of my palette knives, and I'm going to come in with some turquoise here quite thickly. Oops, it lifted. You see, it's experimental. We'll see now. Oh my word, I don't think this was the correct palette knife to use. This point is a little bit sharp, but let's see. Yeah, you see it's lifted a bit, but it's still interesting. So immediately turn this around and let's add it. And then you get a negative print as well. So like I said, don't throw anything away. You can create some magical moments by using the negative print of your stencil as well as the positive print. So somewhere some of these elements might become very interesting to play with in our art journal. So you see what I mean with experimenting and creating something interesting that you can use in your art journal as we go forward. So I wanted to try again. So this is the paper I used to clean my brayer on. That was next to my plate. And I want to try this fleur-de-lis kind of print again with the turquoise on the orange. But I got the correct palette knife out. So I'm going to try this again. And like I said, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it just adds more character to it. I'm going to turn it around and use the other side to just print that on the paper. I love that. And the final one, that's sometimes referred to as a ghost print because it's got the least amount of ink or paint on it, so it's just a subtle ghost image of the print. So again, still a bit blotchy, not very happy with the end result at all. I might have to switch to a different technique, but like I said, we are experimenting. It's still beautiful color. There's nothing wrong with the color. We can use that in a creative way, and I'm going to continue to create some interesting papers using some of my inks and jelly plate, so that we can use this in our collage that we want to do in our art journal. Right, so I want to just create my jelly plate now, and some of the things I collected from my kitchen to create some interesting marks. But what I found was this little toothbrush is just too even, so I'm going to use my scissors here. Let me just move my plate to the side and just randomly cut out some of these hairs, because I do want to have a bit of a random streaky effect, creating a lovely mess here, so that it's not so perfect and even and predictable. So I want some of these raggedy edges to create some texture. So again, this might work or it might not, and then we'll just throw this in a dustbin. So let's see if that made any effect. I'm just gonna blow some of those fibers away, so I don't want any of it on my plate. So I still haven't cleaned my plate because sometimes magical things happen. So I thought of putting down an orange background because that's sort of the color of the day. There we go. And let's just get a brayer here and some brayer paper so that we can remove the excess paint. And just spread that evenly over our plate and remove the excess, or the excess, not access, excess. Some days I create a whole new language. Okay, and I thought let's play with some black paint. I'm going to put some of the black paint here on the brayer sheet because that could be better than the bowl. And I'm going to just press my toothbrush in there, and let's just see what interesting marks we can create that we can maybe repeat. That looks like little tornadoes. How cool is that? Let's create more there on the side, indicating that we're moving off our design. And let's create, or let's grab some paper here. This is just thicker project paper, Now this one I know tends to tear if it's too wet, so forgive the mess I'm making here. This is why we always have little wet wipes at hand so that we can clean up any messes or spills immediately. And of course the black will go everywhere. It's the same in the hair salon. The darker the color, the more likely you are to have it end up on your shirt. Anyway, let's get that down. Just really want a good contact on this paper, so I'm using my brayer to just press down firmly so that the paint adheres to the paper. Now the advantages of the jelly plate is the paint likes to sit on it, but when it's dry, the gel will resist the paint, and the paper obviously now has a fix on it because it's dried on it, and then that should give you a clean pool of that particular print that you've done. So forgive me, I'm just going to add a bit of heat because this is still too cold and tacky, and I do want to speed things up a bit. See what happens here. Awesome. So now you can see it pulled up the old scab that was in the background, and we have a very interesting mark making kind of pattern that we combined with the orange and the black. So really this is all just to encourage you to experiment and try something new. Some of it will work, some of it won't. As long as you know that that is sort of part of this whole journey, then you won't get too frustrated, because eventually it will pull off. Pardon the pun. So I think what we're going to do next is I'm going to let all these papers dry, and when we come back I'm going to play in my art journal with some of these elements and create a beautiful new segment in my art journal around the trip that we had in Bali. So I'll see you guys just now.